We're working on this beautiful grid management system. It sells on the MQL marketplace for $2,800. It boasts quite a strong profit, consecutive months in profit, and comes with a full documentation including features, how to install, requirements, risk settings, strategy, grid settings, and all the other good stuff. But we are building it ourselves. In the first video in the series, we downloaded the demo version of the EA, we ran a backtest, and then through the indicators and other stuff, we tried to figure out how does it take the trades, how does it form the grids, how does it set the TPs and stop losses, and how does the entire mechanism work. We also looked through all of the settings trying to figure out what does every setting do, what can we figure out from all of these settings, and then if we are to build it ourselves, how will we build it? Then in the second video in the series, we started writing all of the fundamental structure of the EA so that we can build everything upon it. We covered until the point where we opened up the first trade. Then in the third video in the series, we continued the coding with the lot size functions and all of the functions which are related to grid, including some smart grid management systems that were based on slow ATR and fast ATR to determine the volatility in the market and adjusting the grid accordingly. We also looked at the lot sizing for the base trade and the grids. And in today's video, we will finish the rest of the coding until the point where we are taking the trades, we are building the grids, we are using the management of the TPs and stop losses, lot sizing based on various different methods that the user can select, and in the entirety of the EA except for the panel. And in the last video, we will look at how to build this beautiful panel and completely finish the EA. Once again, all of these codes are available in the store, and as and when I will update even further features, I will be updating the store as well. But I cannot emphasize the importance of taking the time and writing these codes yourself and only use the codes if you choose to download them as a reference file, because you need to understand the tool that you are trying to use. I will in the future come back with another video where I will go through all of the trading robots I have shared so far, sharing my opinions on how I would use them, in which markets, on what pairs and what timings, when to use them, but more importantly, when not to use them. But those are only my opinions and my views. So take them with a grain of salt. Take them with a full kilogram of salt. But that's for a later video. So let's make a flask of coffee, get our laptops, close the door, and with no more shenanigans, let's start coding. So we'll start again by the same way, assigning the symbol value based on the symbol index. And then if the position total is 0, then just return, exit the function, because if there are no position, then what are we changing the stop TP and stop loss off? Then just like the helper function, we're going to create the prefixes. I'm not going to explain it again. So it's the magic number plus UID, and then we get the digits. And then the by prefix is going to be magic base plus 10 raised to the power 5. So it's going to result in 1844570, and cell is going to result in 284570. So these are our prefixes. Now if the drawdown is triggered, then we just return. We don't change anything because we disable the trading completely when the drawdown is triggered, and there are 4 options for the user to select from. So depending on what he has selected, we're going to do that and not be changing the TPs and stop losses. And then we're going to loop through both position types. First start with buy, then go to sell by using position type ++. So we're going to loop through all the buy position and then the sell position. And then we start looping through all of the positions. So let's select it by index, the first position. And then if it's not selected, then we print that we failed to select. But if it is selected, then we're going to get the ticket, the type, symbol, lot, magic, TP, SL, time, opening price, commission, and swap. These are the values that we're going to get from the position that we have selected. This is what we're going to be using to then calculate if there is a revision of TP and SL. And then we're going to calculate the commission adjustments. So starting with 0, we get the tick value times lot. If that is bigger than the epsilon, then we get the digits. We get the commission swap, so commission plus the swap, and then divided by the tick value times lot to get the value into price equivalent numbers. And then we get the point value, and then the swap, commission swap becomes commission times point. So basically converting it to the decimal places for the current symbol. And then we normalize it to the level of digits for the symbol. And then we're going to try to modify the buy position. So we're going to say if the position type is buy and the type is buy and the order symbol is the symbol, and the magic divided by 100 is our buy prefix, because when you divide by 100, then you get rid of the levels. So then it matches the buy prefix. Then in that case, we will modify the order. So we're going to send this to modify by order, where we're going to do all the operations. If we are trying to modify the sell position, so if the position is sell and the prefix is sell prefix. So if you remove from the magic number the last 2 digits, then it is matching the sell prefix. Then in that case, we're gonna initiate the modify sell order function. We close the for loop, and then we close the other for loop. So here the only thing in this function what we have done is we have calculated the commission adjustment, and we selected the position that need to be changed. And if there is a position that matches everything that we need to change, then we initiate for that position the modify buy order. Or if it is a sell type, then we initiate for it the modify sell order. We haven't changed anything here. We have just looked through all the positions, identify whether it's a position that needs to be checked for modification, and then if it is, then we initiate the modify buy order and we initiate the modify sell order, which are going to be almost exactly the same, just the reverse in logic. So whatever we're going to write for the buy order modification, the sell is just going to be the reverse of that logic. So let's start by creating the modify buy order, and these are the pieces of information that we're going to be sending here in order to check, validate, and then modify the TPs and stop losses. These are the variables that we're going to create within the function to help us do all the calculations. Some temp levels and temp points, which I don't think we need all of these temp points, but when I was writing it in the rough draft, this is how I wrote it, so I'm going to keep it like this for now. So we start with checking if the do not adjust TP unless the new grid is on, and the time current minus the last time when we opened up a new position is greater than 5 minutes, then just return, don't change anything, because most likely, because in those 5 minutes we have already adjusted the TP. So we don't want to adjust the TP again and again until the next time there is a new trade open on the grid. And then using the same calculation that we have done before, we take the magic number and we get from it the buy prefix, because we are trying to change the buy order. We get the buy prefix, and we also get the level. Take the total magic number, remove from it the buy suffix, and then times with 100, which is going to give you the level. The other way you can do it is by calling the get level from magic by passing on the magic number. But here we just calculate it again. And then we start with the average price equals to the open price that we have sent with the position here. Whatever was its open price, we're going to start with average price equals that. And in any case, if there is only one trade on the grid, then the average price is actually going to be the open price. And we set the average price with commission also equals to the open price. Then we're going to check that if the maximum number of trades minus 1 is greater than 0. The three validation that the maximum trade has a value, the third multiplier has a value, and the trade distance has a value. And then if the grid exists for direction 1, which is the buy, because we are trying to change the buy order, so we check if there is a grid on this symbol in the direction of buy, then in that case the average price becomes get the weighted average price for that symbol for direction 1, the buy direction. We don't care about the levels, get the weighted average price, and then normalize it to the symbol digits. And then we also update the last buy average price to this average price, because that is the average price for that symbol after the last buy. Otherwise, if the last buy average is greater than epsilon, so we had stored a value, if we couldn't find the grid, then whatever was the last time that we updated the value into the last average price, get that value, and that becomes the average price. Because in case while we were looping through it, for some reason, the drawdown hits or something happens and the grid disappears, then whatever average that is there in the last buy average price in one of the other functions that we had calculated, we're going to use that and set the average price to that. And then the average price with commission is get weighted average price with commission, and that is a function that we will have to write. And then we're going to normalize it again to the symbol digits. For now, I will close this function, and then here I'm going to create that function, and for now I'm just going to put it as return as 0. So stub it. And then if keep original profit lot size and grid level to start is greater than 1, once again that complex function that I will come back in a separate video to explain the entire thing about if the grid level to start is from level 4 or level 5, then in that case, how exactly are we accounting for it? If I went through that in this video, the video is going to become 5 hours long. So I don't want to do that. For now, you can just take this, you can just copy this function. I'll put this here so that you can see. And then we close the loop of maximum trade minus 1. So we close this loop, and then we come down here, and then we say that the new TP is going to be calculate take profit function, and new SL is going to be calculated through a calculate stop loss function. So let's come down here, and we're going to calculate the take profit, this function. We get the symbol by using the index, then get the digit, point, and tick size. And then we get the pip multiplier. So if it's 5 digits or 3 digits, then it's 10, otherwise 1. So normal currencies, USD JPY, and everything else. And then we start with a TP distance of 0, meaning the break even. And then we create a variable, use grid TP as false. And then if it is a grid order, which we are sending here, is grid order true or false. If it's a grid order and it's not weighted TP, then in that case, get the grid lots to level 1. So as long as the level 1 exists, and we send it the direction, whether we're looking for a buy or a sell. Now, if there are grid lots, meaning the grid exists, then in that case, we're going to use the grid TP. So that becomes true. And then if it is true, and the grid TP value is bigger than 0, because the user needs to provide this take profit for grid. If it is bigger than 0, then we calculate the TP distance to be grid TP times point times multiplier. Otherwise, it is the initial TP times point times multiplier. So if the user specifies something here, then we use this. Otherwise, we default back to the default, this take profit. And then if the TP distance has come down to be 0, meaning either the user has not provided this, or he has put a 0, or the calculations have gone wrong, then in that case, we default to 1000 pips. And then we go, if the break even after this level is greater than 0, this setting, if the user provides, if the grid has opened 4 layers, then in that case, set it to break even. Then in that case, we're going to check if the lot exists up until break even after this level that the user specified minus 1, because base trade level starts at 0 and then 1, then 2, then 4, 3, then 4. So if he's saying after this level 4, then we need to subtract 1 from it. Send the direction. And if the break-even lots come back to be a positive value, meaning that yes, the grid exists and the grid exists up to break-even after this level, then in that case, we set the TP distance to break-even, which is 0. And now we can calculate the TP based on price. So TP distance is going to become base price plus the TP distance, whatever it is. And for the sell trade, it's going to be base price minus the TP distance. And base price in this case is the weighted average, because here base price we are sending as average price with commission. So add the TP distance to it for buy and subtract the TP distance for sell, because the TP is going to be below the price. And then we round it by dividing it by tick size, then math round, and then multiply it back with the tick size. And then we normalize. And now we can go write our calculate stop loss function. So we'll start once again, get the symbol, get the digits, point, and tick size, and then get the multiplier, whether it's based on 5 or 3 digits, it's going to be 10, otherwise it's 1. Get the stop loss distance, which is simply the grid SL times point times multiplier, what the user has provided here, and 1000 pips if it's 0. So 1000 points if the SL distance comes out to be less than epsilon. Then it's exactly the same way, base price is the weighted average price with commission. So for buy, the stop loss price is going to become base price minus the stop loss distance, and for sell is going to be above, so it's going to be base price plus the stop loss distance. And then we round it again, and then we normalize. Exactly the same way as for the calculate take profit. Now we have both of these functions, so we can come back here, and now the next thing we're going to check is that if it is weighted TP, so the user is taking weighted TP, then from the new TP that we have gotten here, we convert it back to the TP distance by taking that new TP and removing from it the weighted average price. And then if a grid exists for buy on our symbol, then take the total lots in the grid by sending for getting it for all levels and for buy. And here we're saying that use the original lot size as false. But if it was keep the original profit lot size, and again the same stuff with the grid level to start, if it's greater than 1 and not auto split, this one, in that case we run the same formula, but this time sending the value as true, that we want to use the original lot size. So we get the total lots in grids either ways, and now we check that if the total grid, so what we got back, if it is a valid value by checking it against epsilon, then we set the start level to 0. Once again, if the grid to start level was greater than 1, then the start level is going to be grid to start minus 1, because normally we're going to start at 1. 1 minus 1 is going to be 0. But if the user has put 5 here, in that case, the grid level to start is going to be grid level to start minus 1. Then we get the start level lots. So at the starting point, what was the level of the lots? So get total, again using the same formula, but this time sending to it the level. Here we got it for everything, but here we're sending the specific level. What is the lot size for this specific level for our buy grids? And here we're saying do not use the original lot size. But in case if it is the grid level to start is greater than 1, then in that case we do want to use the use original lot size. So we send it as true. And now the start level lots becomes the start level lots divided by the total lots in the grid, and the TP distance becomes a start level lots that we calculate here times the TP distance. So this is how we're doing the weighing and getting a weighted average. So now we can create the new TP based on weighted average as TP distance plus average price with commission, and normalizing it to the level of digits. So we get the TP distance here, and then we add it back to our base price and normalize it. And then we close this if, and this if. And then we're going to check for the smart TP, the smart take profit. So now if this is true, which means that we are now not doing the TPs based on the values here, but we're going to be looking at the Bollinger Band width. So then we check if it is true the user has selected a smart TP, then we need to check that for the symbol the Bollinger Band width is greater than 0, and that the grid exists, and that the grid level to start is 1, so the user has not changed it to any other value than this one. Then we start with the smart TP level, setting it to 2, and then the smart TP factor becomes initial TP divided by 100. So we take this 10 and divide it by 100. And now we're going to check how many levels have opened. So we ask if not the grid, here we've already checked that there is a grid on the buy. So there is a grid. So now we check if the grid does not exist at level 2. Meaning there's only the original position and the first level, because original position is level 0, the first position is level 1, which goes back to these. So first and the second trade is going to be this. So second trade is this. The third to fifth is going to be this multiplier, and then sixth onwards is 1.5 multiplier. So we check whether or not the grid exists at level 2. But if it is not, meaning 3 positions have not opened, there is a grid. So it's just the base trade and the first trade. Then in that case, the average price with commission is the open price, and then we set the new TP to the smart TP factor, which is 10%, times the level from magic minus 2, which we calculated here, level from magic, whatever is the current position's level number minus 2, multiplied with the Bollinger Band width, and then the price open. So we set it to basically 10% of the Bollinger Band width. So level 1 equals 10% of the Bollinger Band width. Otherwise, we're going to check that if the grid does not exist to level 3, we're starting at TP level 2, so that plus 3, because here we check for 2. So now this 2 plus 3, meaning the next 3 trades, third, fourth, and fifth, if it does not exist, so the 6th trade does not exist, because remember the trade Levels start at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So these are already 5. So the 6th level does not exist. Then in that case, we are here between the 3rd and the 5th trade. So we're going to set the TP to smart factor, the 10%, times the Bollinger Band width plus the average. Oh, by the way, sorry, my mistake. This is through here. So we're setting it to level 3rd to 5th. We are setting it to 10% of the Bollinger Band width. And here we're basically going TP is equal to 10%, the smart TP factor coming out of the initial TP. And then level minus 2. So whatever level exists, however deep we have gone. Otherwise, which is if we are here, then in that case, we're going to divide it by 2 and multiply it with the Bollinger Band bandwidth and add the commission to it, which basically means that once the grid has become large, then we pull this back to 5% of the Bollinger bandwidth, which is pulling the TP closer so we can close it. So here is where we expand it to 10%, but as we get deeper and deeper to the 6th level and 7th level, then we start to bring it closer to the Bollinger bandwidth by setting it to 5% of the Bollinger bandwidth. So we take the new TP, normalize it to the level of digits, and that becomes our new TP in case of a smart TP. And then we store the new TP that we have calculated to the last by TP member of our symbol array. And then we start our modification attempts. So we're going to try to modify the TP and the stop loss 5 times. We start by creating a temp level. These temp level and temp point. I don't think I'm going to need this, so I'm going to delete. And I'm not going to need the stop level as well, so I'm going to delete that as well. So these temporary point and level variables that I created here. So we're going to set the level, stop levels to temp level and the temp point to the point. And then the stop level price becomes the temp level times the temp point. So we're converting it to the true decimal points. And then we change the value of the temp level to freeze level. And then we get the value of the freeze level price by once again multiplying the temp level into temp point. So first it was stop level, so we converted it into stop level price. Then we change it to freeze level, so we get the freeze level price. So we'll start with the stop loss. So if the new stop loss has a value, so it's bigger than 0.00001, so it has a value, then we're going to check if there is a stop level required by the broker. Because if our stop level price is bigger than epsilon, meaning it's a valid value, is bigger than 0. So in that case, we will take bid minus the stop loss price, because again, we're modifying the buy order, so it needs to be below. So then we're going to take whatever is the price in the market minus the stop level price. So however much the broker requires the resistance from the bid, we're going to take that and our new stop loss that has come here. And whichever one of them is lower, math minimum, whichever one of them is lower, we set the new stop loss to that. And if no stop level is required, then we don't need to do this step. We just simply go, okay, take the bid and take our new stop loss. Whichever one is lower, that is our new stop loss. We're going to do the same for the TP. So as long as there is a TP bigger than 0, then we're going to check if there is a stop level requirement. And if there is a stop level requirement, then we're going to add that stop level requirement to the bid and then compare that versus our new TP, and whichever one is higher, because now the TP, because TP needs to be above, so whichever one is higher, that becomes our new TP. If there is no stop level requirement by the broker, then in that case, we just check between the bid and our new TP, whichever one is higher, that becomes our new TP. And then in case the user has decided to hide the stop loss in TPs, then in that case, new stop loss becomes 0, because we're not going to send it to the broker. We're going to keep it internally, and we're going to close the positions by checking inside of the EA rather than sending it to the broker. And then if it is HideTP, then the new TP becomes 0. And why we're saying use OPO method, because for the open price only closing method, we're again not going to send anything to the broker. We're going to close the positions internally through the EA ourselves. And then we're going to assign the value of has valid TP or SL to true. So we're going to start with that we have a valid TP or SL. But if new TP is 0 and it's not HideTP and it's not the OPO method, then in that case this becomes false. If it is 0, the new TP, and it is a smart TP based on Bollinger Bands, then it shouldn't be 0, so this becomes false. Or if it's a new SL is 0, but it's not HideTP, because this is where we're setting the new stop loss and the new TP to 0, and it's not HideTP, then this is also false. We don't have a valid TP or a stop loss. And then we're going to check that if the current TP minus the TP is not more than 2 points, meaning it hasn't really changed from the current TP, the new TP that is arriving here, or the current stop loss minus the new stop loss is not changing by more than 2 points, or we have a false for has valid TP or SL, in that case continue, go to the second attempt, continue this for loop and not change anything. And then we check that the current TP minus the new TP is less than or equal to just 1 point. Then in that case set the new TP to current TP. And same for the stop loss. If the difference between the current stop loss and the new stop loss is less than or equal to just the point, then in that case set the new stop loss to current stop loss as well. And then we normalize the new TP and the new stop loss. And now we're going to run another function which we're going to create, where we're going to validate the order modification by sending to it the symbol, the order type buy, open price, current stop loss, TP, open price, new stop loss and new TP. And if that function succeeds, then we are going to print that we are modifying the buy trade, attempt number this, and then we will execute the modification. And if the modification fails, we're going to send the ticket number, new stop loss and new TP. And if the modification fails, then we print that it failed, we sleep for 5,000 seconds, and then we go for the next attempt. Otherwise, we say buy trade has been successfully modified, the ticket number, and then we sleep for 5,000 seconds. And then we close the bracket. I'm going to give it a tab, select all of it and give it a tab. And if I compile, I would have the error because of this we still haven't written. So I'm going to put 2 dash and compile, and I still have a fucking error. I think something has gone wrong here. Yeah, we're missing a bracket here somewhere. So this bracket opens here. Let's remove this one and let's remove this one. So now we should be okay. And we haven't written this function, so let's at least stub it. So I'm going to come down here and we're going to stub it as just return true. And if I compile, there's something wrong here as well. The joys of writing MQL. So we're starting the if here and we're checking for this statement, and this statement becomes here. So we need one more bracket at the beginning. So this bracket is closing here. This is our first statement that we are checking. And this is our second statement. So if I compile now, yeah, it compiles properly. So now I can go back up, and here I'm going to remove the 2 hashes and then come back down here. So now we only have that function, modify sell order, which we still haven't written. So after the modify buy order, we come down and we write the modify sell order. And if I compile again, I'm okay. So like in the modify buy order, we'll create these variables. I don't need the stop level here, so I'm going to remove it because we're going to use the temp level and temp point. And once again, just like the section that we created here for if do not adjust unless new TP, and like we're giving a grace period. So unless there is a new level that opens, if more than 5 minutes have passed since the time the last level of the new grid was open, then in that case we just simply return. So we're going to do exactly the same thing here, the entire section, which is if do not adjust Then we get the magic base IDs and stuff, just like here, exactly the same function until the new TP calculation. With the difference here is now we have -1 because we are now checking for sell trades. You can pause the video here and write these codes. Once again, the difference is the -1 that we are using now it's a sell. So instead of buy, we are going to be doing it for sell. And then the same stuff for weighted TP, just like what we did here in the buy section for weighted TP. We're doing exactly the same logic. But now we're going to have sells instead of buy. So you can pause the video here if you want, because I think this video is already 2.5 hours. And then the smart TP, exactly the same, except this time we are looking for sells. The entire modify sell order function is the reverse of, logically it is exactly the same as the modify buy order, but just change from buy to sell, and then from bid to ask. And instead of setting the TP above, we're going to set the TP below. And instead of setting the stop loss below, we're going to set the stop loss above. And then if the grid exists for sell, then in that case, we're setting the new TP back to the last sell TP. And then we're going to try to modify once again, getting the stop level, getting the stop level price, getting the freeze level, getting the freeze level price, and then running through the stop level prices. So if the new stop loss has a price, then if there is a stop level, then we're going to take ask instead of bid plus the stock level price. And we're going to take the math max between the new stop loss, because stop losses are above for sell. If there is no stop level, then it's just the difference between ask and the new SL, whichever one is higher. For the new TP, once again, checking the stop level using ask minus the stop level price and the new TP. Exactly the same stuff that we did here. But just reversing it, it's ask plus the stop level price, because the stop loss needs to go above the price and the TP needs to go below the price. Then we do the same steps. If height is stop loss, the new stop loss becomes 0, new TP becomes 0. And then we start with valid TP or a stop loss true. Then checking if the new TP is a 0 value, then it's false. If it's 0 value and it used to be the Bollinger Band, then it's false. And then the new stop loss is 0 and it's not hide stop loss, so in that case it's also false. And then once again the check for the 2 points, and then checking again the math absolute versus the temp point. If it is less than 0.0001 point, so just 1 point, then the new TP becomes current TP. Then checking for the stop loss. If the current stop loss minus the new stop loss is less than the temp point, the new stop loss becomes the current stop loss. And then we normalize the stop loss and TPs. And then once again, we're going to run that validate order modification function. And if it returns a valid value, then we're going to start the attempts to modify the trade. If it modifies, then we print this. If it doesn't modify, then we print this. So the same stuff as here. If I compile now, I have one error somewhere. I mistakenly put a 2 here. So let's change it to temp point. And if I compile, we do have temp point here. Let's start these as 0 and 0. And we're okay. And now we're going to go write this validate the order modification function. And here we start by saying that if the tick counter is 0, then in that case return false, so that don't validate on the first tick. Modification during the very first minute of the new hour, of the new day. So we're going to start by creating an MQL date time variable, put the time current into that so that we can get the hour and the minute. And then if the current hour is 0 and the current time is less than 1, so it's start of a new day, then in that case return false. We don't want to change the TPs. And it's the start on Monday, so we want to avoid that spike as well. So it's 0 and less than 5 minutes and the day is Monday. And these values you can change yourself. You can make them input values as well if you want, so the user can change them. Then we're going to get all of the market information, point, ask, bid, get the spread, ask minus the bid, stop level, freeze level, and the symbol digits. Then every price data that we have sent here, price data, old TP, old SL, new TP, we normalize all of that to the level of digits. Then for the closing orders, which is the modification type 1 that we will send here, modification type. So 1 is modification type closing. In case of high TP and stop losses, we're going to be closing the orders ourselves. So then we're going to be sending modification type 1. So then what we're going to do the validation is, because we're going to be closing for the buy order, we're going to be closing at bid. But if bid minus the open price is less than the stop level, then in that case the broker is not going to allow us to do it, so we return false. And for the sell order, it's going to be open price minus the ask. If it is less than the stop level, then the broker is not going to allow us to change. So in that case, we return false, otherwise we return true. And then for the modification type 2 and 3, which is going to be TP and SL, and then if it is buy order, then if the bid minus the new stop loss is less than the stop level, then the broker is not going to allow us to change the stop loss. So in that case, it's false as well. And if the new stop loss is greater than the bid, in case of buy order, you cannot place a stop loss above the price, then in that case, return false as well. And for the sell order, it's going to be the reverse, which is if the new stop loss minus the ask is less than the stop level, so it's very close to the price, so the broker is not going to allow it, so in that case, we return false. If the new stop loss is below the ask for a sell order, the stop loss needs to be above, and if it's below, then we return false as well, because the broker is not going to allow it. And then in the same breath, for these modifications, we check the stop loss. Let's check the TP as well. So if TP has a valid value and it's buy order, then if TP minus the ask is less than the stop level, then the broker is not going to allow it, so we return false. And if the new TP is below the ask, which it can't be because it needs to be above the ask, then in that case return false as well. And then in case of order type sell, then if the bid minus the new TP is less than the stop level, then the broker is not going to allow it, so it's false. And if the new TP is above the bid, then also the broker is not going to allow it, because the TP has to be below in case of sell, so we return false. And then we check the freeze levels. So if there is a freeze level, then we need to check again against the freeze level this time, that for order type buy, that the bid minus the open price is above the freeze level. So we have moved from the price enough that now the broker is going to allow it, otherwise we return false. And for the sell order, ask minus the open price, because freeze level is the broker not allowing you to change a position until the price has changed from the opening price by a certain amount. And that's what we are checking here, that it has changed, it has moved more than the freeze level, otherwise we return false. So we close the if bracket here, and then we close the if bracket for this modification type 2 and 3, and then we close the function. But before we close the function, we return true, because if none of that has become false, then we're going to return true. So for modification type 1, we already sent the true here, but for modification type 2 or 3, it's going to go through all of this. If it is not false, then return true. Now hit compile one more time, and we're still doing okay. We're down to almost 2,000 lines of codes. And now we go back down to our get weighted average price, which is still stubbed, and we have used it in the functions. So we need to write this one as well. So here we're going to get the weighted average price with the commission, and this function will require symbol, the direction, include commission, and if to use the original lot size. We start with these three variables. We're going to convert the direction coming from here. So if the direction coming from here is 1, then it's a buy, otherwise it's a sell. And then we're going to create an order type as well, which is, once again, if this is 1, then it's order type buy, otherwise it's order type sell. Now, like before, if we are using the original lot size and the grid level is more than 1, which again I'm going to come back in a separate video to explain the entire working of the functions for grid level to start is more than 1, then in that case we're going to have to find the base lots for the grid with commission. So let's write that function. we're sending a direction to it. So we're going to first take the direction. If it is 1, then it's a buy, otherwise it's a sell. Then we're going to loop through all the positions, try to select it by index. If not possible, then go to the next position, check that the position symbol is equal to our symbol. If not, then continue, go to the next position, then get the magic number, check the magic number, then get the direction and check versus our direction. And if all of that passes, then get the level from get level from magic, the helper function we created. And now if the level is greater than the grid level to start -1, so if the user has put the grid level to start as 5, then there are 5 levels are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is why we say it's 4. So if the grid level, if the level is greater than or equal to this, then in that case, get the volume of the position, because we're only going to start getting the lot sizes from where the user has now said the grid actually starts. So only after this level, we're going to say, take the multiplier, and if the multiplier is bigger, then divide the lot by the multiplier to send us the base lot for the grid with commission. Otherwise, just return 0. So coming back here, we're going to loop through all the positions. Again, selecting by index. If it's a wrong symbol, skip. If it get the magic number, if it is not our magic number, then skip. Is it the right direction? If it's not the right direction, then skip. And if all of that passes, then we take the lots from the position, the open price of the position, and then we get the level by using our helper function to get from the magic number the level. Then if using the original lot size and the base lot is bigger than 0 and the grid level to start is greater than 1, then if level equals to 0, then lots are the base lots. And if the level is bigger than 1, then the lots are base lot multiplied by whatever is the grid multiplier for that level. Then in case the commission is requested, then we start with the adjusted price at the price open. Then we get the adjusted price by calling our get price with commission function, sending to it all of the information. And then we take from this position the lots and add it to the total lots. And we add to the price the adjusted price times the lots. So we get the total price, including multiplication with the lots. So weighting it. And now we can calculate the average. So the average is going to be, if the total lots has a value, then total price divided by total lots, normalize it to the level of digits. Otherwise, return 0. If this value is less than epsilon, then return 0. So this is our function for getting the weighted average price with commission. And here, when we were getting the adjusted price, we call this function get price with commission. So we need to write that function as well. So we write that function, we start with digit, point and tick value. If the tick value times the lot is not a valid value, then just return the open price. Otherwise, we calculate the commission and swap. So the total cost is going to be equals to commission plus swap. And then the price adjustment is going to be total cost divided by the tick value times lot into points. And then if it's a buy order, then we normalize it. Open price plus the point minus this adjustment that we have calculated. Otherwise, it's open price minus point plus the price adjustment in case of sell. And then we close the function. And I compile again. I do not seem to have any errors. And if I run the test, what we should see is that on the very first trade, we have our initial TP. So here is our initial TP set at 10 points. But when the next trade is going to open, we will adjust the TP to the average between these two. They both have the same volume, so it is right in the middle, the average. So the average price is going to be in between. And then the initial TP is going to be moved to a distance from that average price. Now 5 points from there, because now there are 2 trades. And then when the third trade is going to open, we'll see that now the TP has moved to the average, but this time it's because of the weighting average. This one, the new trade, has twice the weight. So in a way, 0.03 is 4 times there. Then you do the weighted average, and then you get the average price, which is very close to this. And then depending on the number of lots, the initial TP is going to be set from there. And then the fourth one is going to open, then it's going to be pulled even closer. So this is how it goes, because now we have 12 lots. So this one is carrying 4 times the weight of this one. So the average price is somewhere here, and therefore the TP is set from that average price. So our TPs are working as well. Compile again. And now we're gonna write our last section, which is closing the grid in case the max drawdown has happened, or if the user has hidden the TP and stop losses. Okay, so now for our drawdown control parts, we go back up to the onTick function, and here after the modification for TPs and stop loss, we're gonna add the check and close grid. So if it's a new bar, update the symbol information, and if trading is allowed, then run this, which we have fully written, run this, which we have fully written, and now we're gonna go and check and close the grids. So let's go down, closing the grids, trades, and drawdown section, and here we're gonna create our function check and close the grids, and we're gonna send to it the symbol. Now if the position total is 0, then in that case just simply return, because there is no position, so there is no grid, there are no trades, there is no drawdown. Then we're going to start by calculating the magic number prefixes, which we have done before, so you know how to do it, which is getting the buy prefix and the sell prefix. So 184570 and 284570. And then we're going to run through both types of positions, so position type buy and position type sell. So we'll start with position type buy, and then we're going to go position type plus plus, meaning go to sell. And then we're going to loop through all the positions. So get the positions total, loop through all of that, select. If you're not able to select, print that we failed to select the order. Otherwise, if it is selected, get all of this information. And then for closing the buy orders, we're going to go if the position type is buy here, and the type of the position that we have selected is also buy, and the order symbol is equal to the symbol, and the magic divide by 100 is buy prefix. So we're removing the last 2 digits, the levels, and comparing it versus the buy prefix. If all of that is fine, then we're going to initiate the close order. And then we're going to do the same for the sell. So if the position type is sell and the type is sell, these two match, order symbol match, and removing from the magic the levels matches the sell prefix, then in that case, we're going to start the close order process. Then we close this loop, and then we close the for, and then we close the function. We're saying that if it's buy or sell, then depending on whether it's buy or sell, we're going to initiate the close order function by sending to it the buy or the sell. So let's write that function now. So we close order, we're going to send all of this pieces of information, order type, everything. And then we're going to send the order type as either sell or buy, depending on which one we're trying to close. Let's get these pieces of information from the server. Then once again, the pip multiplier, if it's 5 or 3, then it's 10, otherwise 1. Calculate the slippage and the max spread. And now using the open time of this trade, we're going to check which bar did we open the time. So I bar shift, providing it the open time of the trade and checking which bar did the trade open on, and then store it into the current bar index. And then we're going to start with should we close as false and create these 3 variables. Now we're going to go through if the user has hidden the TP or hidden the stop loss, or is he using the OPO method. We're going to start with the average price equals to open price, and then we're going to get the average price from the grid if it's available. So we check that the maximum trade number is greater than 0, trade multiplier has a valid value, trade distance has a valid value. We translate the direction. So if here it is open, if it is order type buy, then it's 1, otherwise -1 for sell. And then for the grid exist, we're going to send the direction to it and to check whether or not this grid exists on our symbol for the direction that we are sending to this function. And if it exists, then we're going to get the weighted average price and normalize it to the digit. We wrote this function already. So we're going to send to it the symbol and the direction for any level. We don't care about the levels, and get the weighted average price. Now, if the grid doesn't exist, then it's just one trade. In that case, whatever we stored in the last buy average price becomes the average price, and whatever we stored in the last sell average price becomes the average price if it is sell or buy. And then we're going to calculate the stop loss price by triggering our calculate the stop loss function that we use to create the TP and the SL that we send to the broker. And if you're doing it manually, then it's going to be the same calculation as well. So we're going to send to it, if the order type is buy, then we're going to send the value 1. Otherwise, we're going to send the value of -1 as sell to the calculate stop loss function. And then the TP price, we're just going to get it from the last buy TP and the last sell TP, depending on whether it's a buy order or it's a sell order. Because we're just closing the position, so let's get the TP back from whatever is the current TP. And now we're going to check for the OPO method that if the user has selected to use the OPO method to handle the TP, then we need to check which time frame. Is it the same time frame or is it a different time frame? So we're going to check for the OPO time frame, the I close value, and we store it into the OPO close, meaning, okay, on the OPO time frame, the last close candle, the closing price was OPO close. And then we're going to check if we should close the position. So we're going to see if it for order type buy, if that's the position order type, then we say should close is equal to, if the bar index is greater than the last bar index, and the last bar index is not equal to 0, or if the user has hidden the stop loss, and now the bid is actually below the stop loss price. So whatever we calculated here as the stop loss price, now the bid has gone below. Or if the user has hidden the TP, and now the bid is above the TP price that we have created, or that we have calculated, and it's not using the OPO method, and it's not the smart TP. And if he's using the OPO method, then in that case, the OPO close that we calculate here is now above the TP price, and it's not a smart TP, and the grid open is false, and the OPO triggered is false, or the drawdown is triggered. In all of those cases, the should close become true, because we should close the position in those cases, and the close price becomes bid. Otherwise, for the sell, we check the should close exactly the same way, but in reverse logic. So ask is greater than the stop loss price, ask is smaller than or equal to the TP, and then equals ask. After checking for should close, if the should close turns out to be negative, then in that case return false. Otherwise, we attempt to close. So we print that we are going to close the position, this trade, this ticket number, and then before we close, we check the spreads, that if the spreads are less than maximum spread and the maximum spread has a value, then in that case, we proceed to close by using the validate order modification function that we created for the normal TPs and SL. So we're going to loop through that again, set the standard deviation in point. If the validation turns out to be true, then we close the trade position and we say successfully closed. But if the closing of the position fails, then we say fail to close this, and then we sleep for 1000 seconds. All of this is if the spreads are within the range, but if they are outside of the range, then we just simply print that we cannot close because the spreads are very high, and then we sleep for 1000 seconds as well. And otherwise, we just return false and we close the function. And now we're going to write our check max drawdown function. So we're going to start with a drawdown of 0, get the balance for the account. And then for our first method, which is if the drawdown calculation is 1, meaning we're only looking for this strategy or the entire account. So if it is 1, then it's this strategy only. In that case, we start with a profit of 0. Then we loop through all the positions selected by index, get the magic number, and if it's not our magic number, then go skip and go to the next position. But if it is our magic number, then in that case, add the positions profit, position swap, and position commission into the profit variable that we have calculated. So by the end of this loop, we're going to have the cumulative profit or loss. Now, if it is profit turns out to be less than 0, which means if we are in a loss, then we change the sign of the loss and we call that the drawdown. Because let's say if the profit turns out to be minus $200, we are in a drawdown. But what's the drawdown? 200. So we reverse the sign. But if the profit is not less than 0, meaning it's either 0 or greater, then in that case there is no drawdown, so we say 0. So this is for if the drawdown calculation is 1. But otherwise, meaning the drawdown calculation is 0, the entire account, then we just simply get the balance. We just simply take the balance that we have gotten here minus the equity, which we can get from the broker. Now, if the equity is bigger than the balance, meaning we are in profit, then in that case, the drawdown is going to be less than 0. So in that case, we are in profit, so we set the drawdown to 0. If the balance is bigger than the equity, then we're going to get, in any case, the drawdown value as an absolute number anyway. Now that we have the drawdown calculated, we can check the percentage drawdown. So if the maximum drawdown is greater than epsilon, so the user has put a maximum drawdown value here, maximum drawdown in percentage. If he has put a value and the maximum drawdown is less than 99.99, because for 100%, it basically means, well, you don't care about the drawdown, it can go all the way to 100%. So if it is a valid value and it's less than 99.99, so the user has specified some sort of a floating drawdown in percentage, then we're going to check for the percentage. So we take, if drawdown is greater than the max drawdown divided by 100 times the balance. So we first convert it into a percentage and then multiply by the balance to get the actual amount. And then if drawdown has become bigger than that, then we will trigger this function, which is handle the drawdown trigger. And then we check the money drawdown, which is if the user has put the floating drawdown in money terms instead of percentage. Then as long as it is bigger than 0, then this one is triggered. So we're going to check if the drawdown has become bigger than that. And if it has become bigger than that, then we will also initiate the function handle drawdown trigger. So we close the function here. And now we need to write this handle drawdown trigger. So let's create that function. We're going to start with the last message as 0, date time. And then if the time current is bigger than the last time we checked by at least 60 minutes, 3600 seconds, in that case, we will print the message. Otherwise, we don't want to print the message on every take or every new bar. So at least 60 minutes. And now we're going to switch through our 4 different types of maximum drawdown actions. Now, if it is case 0, which is close and stop the trading for 24 hours, then in that case, we're going to say drawdown is triggered, is true. Cool down hour is set to 24, and then disable all the trading. And that's a function we will write. And then if it is case 1, which is close and stop the trading until restart, again, drawdown trigger becomes true. Stop trading until restart becomes true, and then you disable all the trading. And then in case it is case 2, which is ignore new signals, then we just disable all trading. And in case it is case 3, which is ignore new signals till restart, then we say stop trading until restart is true and disable all the trading. And then we close the function. So here we're going to switch through this and then see what do we need to do. Set these variables and disable all trading. And disable trading is a very simple one. You remember we were doing the can buy and can sell. So we're just going to set the can buy and can sell to false for all 3 symbols or for all 4 symbols, whatever number of symbols that we have by looping through them. And now if I compile, I don't have any errors. And if I run a test now, so we have our TP, the TP keeps moving until we come down and hit the TP. Now I'm going to do something else, which is I'm going to change this to only sell. We only see the sell trade. And then we're going to check if the HideTP is working. So let's first do it without to see how it looks if the TP is sent to the broker. So we have the TP here. It goes up with the grids, and the 3rd layer is opened, and the 4th layer is open, and when it comes down now probably to hit the TP, it should close. here. Now if I go and I hide the TPs, then we shouldn't be seeing the TPs anymore. But the logic should still work the same, ideally. So we have the first one and we don't see any TP, then the second level, third level, fourth level, and now when it comes down here, it should close the positions with the calculation of the TP internally. So here it closes, but it only closed one position instead of all 4 positions. So something has gone a little bit wrong in our code. Let's go back and find where the problem is. So we go back up to where we're saying it should close, and then we send for the order modification, just exactly like the TP and stop loss that we do for when we're sending the orders to the broker. But that might actually be the problem, because once the first trade has closed, the system is gonna recalculate the TP value for the remaining positions, and that changes the TP. So the internally stored TP is gonna be different then. So we can't really do the validation of the order modification exactly the same way as we did for the TP and stop loss for when we were sending it to the broker, because we're not sending it to the broker anymore. Before, we just calculated the TP and stop loss, and once we had the TP and stop loss, we sent it to the broker. We didn't iterate. But here, because we're iterating, so after the first trade is closed, the TP calculation is gonna change and it's gonna be a different TP. So we can't really use this. So I'm gonna mark it as comments for now. So we're still gonna check for the spreads. And if the spreads are less than the maximum spread, then we're gonna loop through all of the positions, selecting it by index, again getting the symbol. If it matches our symbol, then it's fine, otherwise continue, go to the next position, get the magic number, check for if it's our magic number. If it's not, then go to the next position, otherwise continue. We check the direction, we get the direction, and then we check if it doesn't match. If the order type we're sending to the function is this, but the direction we're getting is not one, then we skip to the next position, and it's the same thing for the sell. So we check whether or not the types match for sell and for buy. And then we set the slippage by saying trade.set deviation in points. We set the slippage, and then we try to close the position. And if the position closes, then we say that the grid position this is closed as part of the TP hit. And if not, then we say fail to close the position, and we get the result, the description. And if we are able to close everything, then we return true. Otherwise, and this is where you can delete this. So if the spread was smaller than the max spread, we loop through all the positions. If it matches our criteria, then we close and we print that we closed. And then if we are able to close, then we return true. Otherwise, we print that the spreads are too high, so we cannot close. And then we sleep for 1000 seconds and return false. Let's compile. And now if we go back and run the same test, we have the first position open, the second position open, the third position open, the fourth, and when it comes down to close it at the TP, now we have closed all of the positions in one go. So this then takes care of our hide the take profit. And now we're gonna give the finishing touches to our EA. So let's go back up, and we're gonna write a function here before the symbol related functions, which is going to be the periodic update. And this is where we're getting the MQL date time variable. We create one, we put the time current into that so that we can get the minute and the hours. The current time code becomes minute plus hour times 100. So 1430, for example, becomes 1430 like this. And then if we are not in a tester or optimization, then in that case, we refresh both the time frames, main time frame and the OPO time frame. And then we check for closing conditions on every periodic update. Then we check for check and close grid. And then we check for the main update, which is going to be only one. So unless the last minute updated is not, if last minute update is not equal to the current time code, then in that case, we're going to check if the current time has become 60 seconds bigger than the last timer check. And we're not in a tester, we're not in the optimization. So we set the last timer to time current, so that the next time it comes back, it will have to wait another 60 seconds. And then we refresh. And then we check the drawdowns, and then we check that trading is allowed. It's not a tester, it's not optimization, and trading is allowed. Then we're going to check and open the grid orders, modify and the grid TP, and check and close the grids as well. And then we're going to set the last updated minute to the current time code, so that next time it needs to be 60 seconds before, so only once per minute. So this is our periodic update, because our onTick function, the first thing it does is it checks if it is a new bar on the main time frame. So it's every 15 minutes. So this is our periodic update. And then we come back to the onTick, and here after closing this, while we're still in the symbol, we update for the OPO time frame as well. So now here we were checking for the main time frame, and now we're going to check for the OPO time frame as well. If the new bar time is smaller than or equal to the OPO time frame update, then in that case the new OPO bar is false. Otherwise, the new OPO bar is true, and we set the last OPO time frame update to the current bar's opening time from the OPO time frame. Now, if it is true, then we reset the OPO triggered to false. And then we add periodic update. So this is our onTick function now, which was initially we were working with just the main time frame, but here now we are adding the OPO time frame as well. And then in the end, after adding the OPO time frame, then we add the periodic update. And then here in the initialization, we set the event timer to 5 seconds. So let's write the on timer function as well, which is not a complicated one. We say if it is tester or optimization, so it's not real trading, then just return, because there is no on timer. Otherwise, last timer check becomes time current, and then loop through the currencies and refresh the main time frame and refresh the OPO time frame. And then I compile, and we have an error here, is new OPO bar, because we did put initially the is new bar main time frame, but we didn't add the is new bar OPO. So now we're adding the new OPO bar refreshing as well. So in that case, we also need to write the bool here, create the variable. If I compile, everything is fine. Now, one last addition is that here, when you're going to be testing, you will get the test on outcat. So whatever currency you select here, that is the one which is going to run here. But what if you wanted to test for all three currencies at the same time? So let's go up to our sections on the global input. And here we're going to add one more input group, which is going to say test all currencies, automatically as false. But let's just say that this can slow down the tester, and we can go create the header as tester settings. So the user can now select whether he wants to only run it on the currency he has selected or all the currencies which are here. And then we go down to our parse and initialize the symbols. And here we were checking that if the symbol count is greater than 0 and it is not MQL tester, then in that case we are in the live environment, so we do all of this. But otherwise, just use one symbol. So now we are going to enhance this to, so we're still checking that the symbol count is more than 1, otherwise it's just one symbol. But then now we say that if, and this is an AND condition. So the second condition to check is that it is not MQL tester, meaning it's live, or it is test all currencies is true and it's not optimization. So what's going to happen here is that if the symbol is more than 0, which it needs to be, otherwise you're not doing a multi-currency test. And then we check that if it is not the tester, meaning it's a live environment, then do the parsing and initialization of the symbols. Otherwise, if it is tester, then check that all currencies are true and it's not optimization, because in optimization still we do not want to do it by all 3 currencies at the same time. We only want to do it 1 currency at a time. But if the test all currencies is true, then we still need to check that it's not optimization. So we write this here as well. So I'm going to comment this out. Let's compile. And now if we go back, we will see here that test all currencies in the tester, which if it is false, then we should still receive 1 currency, which is the out CAD, and the trades are opening. But if it is turned to true, now we should see all 3 currencies. And this is what you're seeing. So it's out CAD, out New Zealand, and New Zealand CAD. All 3 currencies. The sell trade on out CAD. Now we have the position on New Zealand CAD as well. So let's look at out New Zealand as well, if we get a trade here as well. And now we have a trade here as well. So if I pause it and go to the history, then we have on Australian New Zealand dollar, we have on New Zealand dollar and CAD, and the third one should be New Zealand dollar, and here we have the odd New Zealand as well. So all 3 currencies are now being tested at the same time. So this is it. I know it was a very long effort, 2,700 codes. If you have written this, then congratulations. And then first in the next video, we're going to write the coding for the panel. And then we're going to come back with another video to explain the grid level to start greater than 1. During your testing or my testing, if you find anything which is still doesn't work, put it in the comments below so that I take a look at that, and then I'll share in another video if there are any modifications or corrections that are required for the year. I mean, altogether it's 2,700 lines. So the chances of something missing somewhere is still there. But this is the functional EA as it is. And now in the next video, we're going to look at writing the codes for the panel. So until next time, guys, stay safe and trade safe.